All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for attending this webinar. This is Playlist in Canvas. If you would like to follow along with today's slide deck, you can go to the link on this slide, which is bit.ly/Canvas playlist, and that's all lowercase. The copied bit.ly link is also in the chat if you would like to copy it from there. It's good to see many familiar faces. I know after this week and a half of professional development, I see some similar faces that have been coming to our session. So again, we really appreciate your commitment to your students and trying all these new tools with us. So again, I'm Lauren Swissman. I'll be presenting today with Amy Fosek. You may have heard this before. We're going to go ahead and go over it again. Today's training is a 1-hour training, which includes our webinar, time for questions, and work time. If you have questions during the webinar regarding today's topic, feel free to pop those questions in the chat feature in the bottom right corner. If you have a question that's specific to you, feel free to direct message Amy or I, or to send us an email at our EdTech email address, which is edtech, EDTECH, @PowieUSD.com. We are recording this session. It will take us about 48 hours to get a recording of this posted on the Canva flyer where you found today's Zoom link. And lastly, we are continually updating our PUSD digital teaching resources site. Please check back that site regularly as we will add things as the school year goes on. All right, let's get started today by going over the agenda. The first thing we're going to do is introduce you to a new tool within Canvas, which is called the Rich Content Editor. Then we're going to go over playlists, what they are, just kind of a refresher if you have heard of them before. If you haven't heard of what a playlist is, this will be your little bit of an introduction. Then we'll go over 3 different examples of how you might format a playlist in Canvas. And the remainder of the time will be for questions and answers and work time. All right, let's go ahead and go over this first new feature in Canvas. And this is something that was long awaited. We've been hearing about it for a while, and Amy and I were super Canvas nerdy excited for this to finally launch. And it is called the Rich Content Editor, and it makes the tools within Canvas just a bit more intuitive and a bit easier to navigate. So directions for how to enable this tool are down here if you would like to access it later. But I'm going to go ahead and show us some features of this tool and how you would go about installing it. So I'm going to go ahead to my Canvas course. And I'm going to go to Pages, and I'm going to pretend that I'm making a new page. Make this a little bit longer. Okay, so you might notice right away that this toolbar up here looks a little bit different from the toolbar you may be familiar with in your Canvas courses. And that is because, again, I have this Rich Content Editor turned on. So I can still do all the same things, it just looks a little bit different. For instance, in the past, if I wanted to add an image or a video, I would have to go to this sidebar on the right. The sidebar on the right is no longer there. Instead, I have to look up here for things that I want to add in. I click here if I want to add a link to something, image, media, such as a video, documents, or external tools. Let me go ahead and start with this image portion of the Rich Content Editor. So if I wanted to add an image I have saved in my documents or my desktop, I would click Upload Image, and you can notice here, rather than having to search through my files, I can actually drag and drop. So let's say I have an image on my desktop, I can simply drag it in here and click Submit. And then there it is in my page. So a little bit quicker than the older editor for Canvas. I can quickly just add things in here. If I wanted to link this to something, I could select it and click Link, put in my URL there, or link it to something in the course. If I wanted to link it to another page. Let's take a look at the media editor. I can upload and record media right in here. And again, it just looks a bit more intuitive. If I recorded a video using a different device or a different app, I could go ahead and drag that video in here. I also have the option to record a video here with or without my webcam. I can record something. I could say the directions for how to do something. I could give a good morning message, whatever it might be. Save it and put it right into my Canvas page. So again, similar to what you could do before, just that navigation and ease of use makes it a little bit easier for us to navigate these features. And lastly, our add-on apps here. You can still access all the same apps that you had before. It just looks a little bit different. You can also add in tables and customize them a bit more, change the colors of each cell, change the fonts within there. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do with that. I could keep going on and on about the Rich Content Editor, but those are just a few of my favorite features of that tool. To turn this on, and this is turned on at the course level. So if I turn this on for my playlist course that I'm in now, it doesn't mean that it's going to turn on for any of my other courses. However, if I do turn it on for this course, it will also be turned on for my students. So if your students are familiar with the past version of Canvas, you would definitely need to be able to introduce them to how it looks a bit different in this one. I'm going to go ahead and click Settings in the bottom left corner. And at the top, I'm going to choose Feature Options. And I'm going to go down to RCE Enhancements and make sure it's check marked there and it's slid to on, that green look. And I'll make sure that this is on and then this editor is on. If you've already done things in your course and you turn it on, it will not change what you've done in your course or delete anything. And if you decide that you don't like it and want to turn it off, you can do so as well. And it will not erase anything that you have done. We just wanted to make sure to show you this today because it can make things within Canvas a little bit more intuitive, and that so as we demonstrate things today, it doesn't look like we're in a different form of Canvas than the one that you're using. Amy, any questions about the Rich Content Editor before we move on?
Nope, we're good. Thanks, Lauren.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and hop back over, and I'm gonna let Amy take over the screen so she can bring us into our next portion of the playlist overview.
Right, so we're gonna just briefly go into a playlist overview. So what are playlists and why would you use them? So for those of you who are new to the idea of using playlists within your classroom, playlists are a collection of resources and or activities for students to choose from. So the tasks on playlist are designed in such a way that students can learn at their own pace, level, time, and often have product choice in producing their evidence of learning. So what this allows is for more student voice and choice within the learning environment, as well as allowing teachers the flexibility to work one-on-one or with small groups of students. So when you're looking at designing a playlist, know that there are 3 different ways you can provide opportunities to your students, right? We can say, okay, I'm gonna give them choice of topic on this playlist, right? This is gonna focus on choice of topic. So say I'm learning about animal adaptations. The product that the students are creating is all the same, but I'm giving them a choice in the topic. Do you wanna learn about adaptations of whales, birds? They're getting choice there. The next example is choice in product. So every student has the same learning objective. I'm just giving them choice in how they show me that learning. Do you want to make a video? Do you want to do a Google slide presentation? Do you want to make an infographic? So again, same learning objective, but I'm giving them choice in product. And finally, you can give them choice in process. So here is my learning objective. Would you like to come to an asynchronous lesson with me? Would you like to watch a synchronous lesson? Would you like to go to Khan Academy to learn this concept? Or would you like to collaborate with a peer? So they're same learning objective, but I'm giving them choice in the process of how they learn best. What will meet your needs best? Do you learn the concept better when you're reading from a textbook or from hearing a lecture from me? So again, allowing that student voice and choice within one of those three areas. When we look at formats for playlist, on the left-hand side, you'll see that we've put in just 4 different formats that we see commonly used within classrooms. So one would be a tic-tac-toe board. So in the center is an activity that maybe I have all students completing. And then around the students' directions are they need to make tic-tac-toe, choose from the sample activities that I have given you. You can also do it by category, immerse, explore, create, or use a bingo board. Again, the format you choose is what works best for you. These are just some samples of what we've seen. When we look at tech integration into playlist, there are 3 different lenses you can look through this through. So the first would be same task, but different tech. So all of my students are doing the same task, but I'm giving them choice in the tech that they are using. So the example here says, retelling the story from another character's point of view. Okay, there's your task. Do you want to make a video? Do you want to do a cartoon on Powtoon? Or do you want to use Google Drawing to create a timeline? The next example is different task, but same tech. So I want all of my students to know how to use iMovie. So I'm going to give them the task of creating an iMovie. Now they can do that using a book recommendation, they can create a book trailer, or they can do an interview on iMovie. The final one we have up here is different task and different tech. So we're asking them to complete a task with a tool of their choice. So they can do a book recommendation. Again, I'm not telling them what tech to use, but here is the rubric. Here's what you must include in that book recommendation. You may make a trailer, or you can do an interview. So again, this is an example of different task and different tech. When you're looking at beginning to integrate playlists into your classroom, here are some considerations on how you should share that with your student. So the first consideration is decide on what is going to be your home base for where this playlist is going to live. Are you going to have your playlist live within pages within Canvas, within modules, or as an assignment? And we're going to dive deeper into this as we go on through this webinar. The second consideration is decide on the tools that the students will be using. So the tools that the students are using, are they going to be embedded within Canvas, or are they going to be external tools? And then how are the students going to show you the proof of learning if they're using external tools? And finally, decide on how student work will be submitted. So when students submit their work, are you having them do one upload within Canvas? So an example that I'm going to be showing you in a minute would be, I'm going to use my playlist and create it as one assignment. The student needed to choose 3 choices off of that playlist. So then they are going to submit 3 different pieces of evidence of learning on that one playlist in the one assignment. So when I go to Speedgrader, right, it will just say playlist for the week of, and I'm putting in 1 grade for those 3 assignments. Or will you have students use screenshots and links on a Google slide? So Lauren's going to go over how you can use the Google LTI. I can make my playlist into a Google slide deck. I can have it make a copy for each student, and then they are linking their work and embedding that within their own copy of their playlist to show me proof of learning. So really thinking of how you are going to have students submit their work so that you are not having to go to 10 different places to find student work. You want to have one home base. So we're going to show you again those 3 different options for sharing playlists with your students. The first is going to be just embedding your playlist as a Canvas assignment. Next would be the Google LTI assignment. And finally, sharing your playlist as a module for students. So I'm going to switch over now to show you. If you are in your course within Canvas and I wanted to create my playlist as an assignment for students, I'm going to go into my assignments. Okay. I'm going to then create a new assignment for my students. Okay, I'm just going to title it demo for now. And I have put my playlist in as a Google Doc. So I'm going to go to my external tool app feature, excuse me. Then I'm going to scroll down to my Google Drive. And today Canvas is not playing nicely with us. So what would pop up would be access to my Google Drive. I would then select my playlist. And then it would be embedded on the page. Let me show you what that would look like. So if this was my playlist that I just stuck in here from my Google Drive for the students to see, here's my playlist. So students must choose one activity from each column. Now, the nice part about embedding this from my Google Drive or from a slide deck is my links can be live for the students to interact with, right? So all of these links they can click on and it takes them right where they need to go. When I do this way, I am having my students then submit their evidence for completing this playlist as one assignment with 3 uploads, right? So they're giving me one assignment from choice 1, one assignment from choice 2, one assignment from choice 3, all as one assignment. Lauren, any questions so far?
There are a couple of questions, but I just noted that we're going to go over them in a minute as we go through all of the options. So we're doing good so far.
Okay, perfect. So this would just be a way that if you wanted to choose this organizational path for your students, you could choose this way. You could also choose, if you didn't want to embed from Google Docs or Google Slides on your page for your assignment, you could build the playlist within Canvas as well. You don't have to import it from Google Docs or Slides. The reason I chose to show you this way is because you have a little bit more flexibility in the features that you can do outside of Canvas versus when you're building within Canvas. So one thing I do want to note for my elementary school teachers out there, you cannot put a YouTube link on your Google Doc or Google Slide and have students access it through Canvas in this way. If you want your students to access a video from YouTube, because YouTube is blocked at the elementary level, you will need to put that video into Canvas Studio, copy the URL from Canvas Studio, and then put that on your Google Doc or your Google Slide. And we have trainings on Canvas Studio and how to use that you can access if this is something that you are not familiar with. All right. So now Lauren is going to go ahead and walk us through using the Google LTI as a way of sharing playlists.
All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so again, Amy showed her way of using Canvas assignments. Now we're going to talk about the Google assignments. And it can be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to explain the difference as we go through here. I'm going to go ahead and go to assignments and make a new assignment. Now, if I wanted every single student to see a copy of the playlist and not have I'm sorry, let me start over. If I wanted every student just to see the playlist, whether it's a doc or a slide, I would embed it here. However, if you're familiar with Google Classroom, you have the option to give students a copy of each their own copy of the playlist. So you can do that by not embedding it here, right? Because that would be view only. But if I go down to submission type and I change it to external tool, I can use the Google assignment tool to make sure each student gets their own copy that they can edit and submit for their own work. So I'm going to go ahead and find that Google assignment tool. And we call it an LTI, which means learning tool interoperability, but essentially that just means that the tools can talk to each other. So I'm going to go ahead down, and please be careful to pick the one that says Google Assignments. I'm going to select that one there. I'll click Continue. And now here I have the opportunity to make a Google assignment. Now something I can turn on is the plagiarism checker. That will give both myself and students to see to make sure that there is no plagiarism happening in their document. And then when I click attach, I can search through my Google Drive to attach a playlist. So I'm gonna go ahead and attach, let's see, where's that original? This playlist here. I can add a due date or make no due date. I can make points, where I can add a rubric in here. If you are used to using the rubrics with Canvas, both of those features cannot be used here. If you're using the Google Assignments LTI, you can only use the rubric that is found within the Google assignment. So I'm gonna go ahead and click Create. And let me go ahead and reshare this window. Okay. So now when I go ahead, I'm gonna name this the reading playlist. I might type some directions in here. Please complete the playlist and save and publish. Now from my end, I can see I've assigned this playlist and 0 students have submitted it. Now there's no students in my class, but I would be able to see my list of student names here. I'd be able to see, click on it and see how far they've gone. So I could click on it, open their copy of the playlist and see what they've done so far in it. And then once it's submitted, I have the ability to give lots of feedback in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up an assignment where a student already submitted their work.
So while Lauren's doing that, pulling that up, one thing I just want to note, because I see it coming in the chat, what the Google LTI feature does is it allows you to make a copy of a template or a doc for each student. So when you use the Google LTI, rather than it forcing your students to make a copy, this will do it for them automatically. So it will put their name at the beginning. So it would say, you know, if it was mine, it would say Amy Fosek's reading playlist 824. And then it will put it all in a file in your drive for you. So this would allow you to go to your drive, see students' assignments as they're working, and they don't have to worry about making a copy of your doc, then sharing it with you once they submit. This is just a different way of ensuring that all students have a copy and that you would be able to then monitor and kind of check in as they're working. So Lauren is showing the Google LTI feature right now.
Yes. So this is the LTI feature right here, right? I made this reading playlist assignment, and now I don't have a whole lot of students in my class, but you can see down here, this is where the student's name and submission date would be. So it would tell me if they submitted it and if I gave them a grade. So I went in under the technology and innovation email. So it would not usually say technology and innovation. It would say the student's full name here. I could click on it and see their work, what they've done so far. And if they submitted it, I can click on it and I can see what they've done, right? I can see they took that playlist and they highlighted the boxes green. They made them green for the ones that they completed. And then they linked some of their work here. This one was create a map. So they linked their map in here. This one was write a diary entry and they linked their work in here. So I can see the work that the student has done right in here or get links to the work that that student has completed. So what I can do in here, I can go ahead and edit and suggest. So let's say this wasn't even a playlist. Let's say this was a writing assignment. I can make suggestions to their writing. Another option I have is to make a comment bank here. If there are things that you're saying quite often, you can put a comment bank in here. So maybe if I go to make a comment on that student's work, I can use a comment from my bank so I don't have to keep retyping the same thing over and over. Now, when I'm ready to give that student a grade, I would type their grade in here. I might give overall feedback on their work in this box, and I click return. That student will be notified that they have a new grade in their grade book. This will also show up in Speedgrader for me, and the student can see the feedback that you have left for them. So this is what it looks like on my end, right? I would see a list of the students and I'd be able to view their copy of it. To go back again, this is different than just embedding it in a page or assignment because they each get their own copy. This allows them to edit their copy. And a question that we get a lot is, well, should I be giving them their own copy or should I just embed it for them to view? And that's really kind of a personal question and preference. So think about your physical classroom. When you gave your students playlist or stations or a choice board, did you just project it on the screen and then ask them to go ahead and make their choices and submit their work elsewhere? Or did you make a copy for each student to kind of mark off what they've done? There's no right or wrong there. It's just kind of that personal preference again. The embedding the Google playlist would be just projecting it kind of like you would in your classroom for all the students to just view, whereas using the Google Assignments LTI feature would be giving each student a copy. So
Lauren,
again,
can you stay, sorry, on this page that you're on?
Sure.
So you can see right here, this is where if you're using the Google LTI, you would put your total points and the due date. So on the screen that she is on.
Mm-hmm. So I could change, if I decided to change this, I could make it out of 80 points, whatever it might be. Okay. And if I had a rubric, I could view my rubric here. I can also make it so that they can submit it multiple times or only allow them to submit it once. There are a couple different features in here that you can adapt to make sure it fits your assignment. Any other questions about the Google LTI?
Do you want to talk about a little bit about the turn it in feature with the Google LTI and how that works within Google if they're using it?
So I'm with this one. You can use the originality reports that are hosted by Google rather than turn it in. Is that what you're asking, Amy?
Yes. So can you just go over the originality reports so
Sure.
so those who are not familiar with using Google Classroom or the Google LTI will know how that translates to the turn it in and how it's similar.
Correct. So I just clicked check for plagiarism over here on the right, and now you can see it says no flagged responses. This just scans it and then scans the internet and a lot of databases out there to see if it's taken any words from an original document. So right now you can see there's no flagged responses. There is no signs of plagiarism. However, if there was, it would flag them within the document and I'd be able to see them. Now, I can't exactly show you the student view right now, but they also have opportunities to make sure that they haven't copied words. They've done enough jobs of reading it correctly and putting it in their own words. They have the opportunity to do that as well to make sure that there's no plagiarism in their report. So again, it's just on the side for me here, and I can see that there are no flagged passages.
So again, with all of these, especially I see some questions in the chat for our youngest learners, with whichever platform you use, you will need to scaffold and show your students how to submit this work. If they've never used Canvas before as a way of turning in work, you will need to walk them through the process of what that looks like and how they're going to do that. If you choose the Google LTI integration where they're posting their proof of learning on the slide deck, you will again need to show them how to do that if that's something they haven't done before.
And I see a question here about, can you modify it once you assign it? The things I can change are up here, the total amount of points, the due date, but I cannot change the file. I've already submitted it to be made copies into each student. So once a student gets a copy of that, It's just like if you made a copy with the copy machine and gave it to each kid, I can't automatically change everything on their copies. So once that copy is made and that the students begin opening up their copy, there's no changing that copy. If I change my original version of that, it will not automatically change on theirs because they have their own copy now. It does not always have to be in a slide deck. It could be a Google Doc. It could be a Google slide. You can see this here. This is actually a Google Doc. Yeah, so it can be Google Docs or Google Slides for them to edit through the LTI.
Lauren, do you mind clicking on the Speedgrader? I think you put a grade for this one, correct, in Speedgrader?
Yes, I believe I did. Let me go ahead to grades. So I can see for Ed Tech, I did not match up because we weren't planning on showing this part before, but I had made, and I was playing around with it, the points on the Google assignment, I had made them 80, and then we were playing around with it. I made it 100 again, so I was playing around with it. But when I made the actual assignment in Speedgrader, I just put 5 on the assignment. So it kind of just made whatever I had left it at, which I think was 80 to 100. It changed it to 4.5. So whatever the equivalent fraction would be, I'm not sure what I left it on, it made it here. So when I made the original assignment, let me go ahead and go back. Edit assignment settings here. I made it out of 5 points. What you would want to do is make sure that it matches if this is how you're going to use it with Speedgrader. So if I made it on the Google assignment as out of 100, I would want to do the same thing here. So that when I go to grades, oops, let me change it here. I'll make this out of 100, change. So when I go to grades here, it's out of 100. Now, I already gave this student a grade previously in this morning session, so I'd have to go back and change their grade now that's out of 100 rather than 5. However, when I gave them that grade in Google feedback and the Google assignments, it would reflect in here. I think some of these questions can be answered by going on to this next part with modules. Is there anything else you want me to address before we move on to that?
Nope, I think we are good right now.
And while I can't exactly show you how a student would submit their work, essentially similar to the view that you had with me, I'll just show that really quickly. Similar to the view that I had as a teacher here, it would look very similar for their student. Rather than return, theirs would say submit. And they would have a plagiarism checker as well. So it looks very similar to this. Okay, I'm gonna go on to our third option, which is modules, because I think this will help answer some of the questions that we have in the chat here. So for those of you that are new to Canvas, let me just take a second to explain the difference between a page, an assignment, and a module. The way I like to think about this is sometimes we just give the students a page of something to read, right? That's what pages are, and I have a whole lot on that page. And of course with Canvas, that page can not only have things to read, it can have links, it can have videos, it can have voice directions. So a page is essentially just sharing content with the student. Now, an assignment is something that is tied to the Speedgrader, which you saw with Amy's Canvas assignment, you saw with the Google LTI assignment. We can give content, we can make copies of content, and students can submit work with that assignment tied to the Speedgrader. They can submit work through links, through external apps such as Google or Flipgrid. They can submit work through text, through a video. They can do it through so many different things. So we have the pages, we have assignments, and then there's modules. Now, modules aren't actually something you create with new content in it. It's just kind of like your folder, right? Sometimes you give your students their work, their pages or assignments one at a time, and sometimes we might go ahead and put that in a folder and say, here's your playlist for the week. That module is really that folder. It's really just an organizational tool for you to put things in a concise way for students to complete their work. So let's go ahead and look at the module example I have here. So this is a module template, and you can see in this whole entire module, I have pages, and this is the icon for pages, and I have an assignment in here, right? So I can put in pages, I can put in assignments, whatever mix of things that I want to do into my folder or my module. So it's really just an organizational tool for you to organize how you want to present things to students. Now, there's a couple things you can do with a module. You can set it so that students have to complete things in a specific order. So I might say you need to complete the read it and the watch it before you practice it, right? Which is often what we want students to do. We want them to do some form of content acquisition before they show their understanding. Or we might say, I want them only to see these first few things, and I'm going to unpublish the practice it and the demonstrating of their understanding. So I have the ability to hide things from students until I want them to be able to see them. So it just allows us to really, again, organize the content that we're sharing and assignments that we're sharing with students and put some limitations on it as well. Working in a chronological order, completing some things before others, and maybe hiding some things from student view. Any questions about what a module is so far? And then I'll dive into how you might use this for a playlist.
Nope, I think we're good. One thing that I'm not sure if Lauren mentioned, because I was in the chat, was if you were using the module format for your playlist and there was something you wanted all students to do before they could go on to the next activity, you can edit the module and make it so it has requirements. So you can say, okay, before students go on to this next piece of the work, they must complete X, Y, and Z.
So you can see here, and I'll back up a second. In the top right corner of the module, I hit these 3 dots, and I'm adding a requirement. I could say that students must move through the requirements in order and complete all of them. So the next one won't unlock until they complete the prior one. Or I might say students have to complete the read it and the watch it before they can move on to that next chronological thing in their playlist. So again, you can set those things until it best meets the needs of your playlist. Now, there's many different ways you can set up your playlist, depending on the age of your students, the content, and how you like to present them with information. This is a very popular template for setting up a playlist in a virtual classroom. In this template, you would name your whatever your unit is or your objectives, right? You put your objectives here, your agenda for that playlist. So I would put directions in here. Any reminders, videos, or extensions related to this playlist. And again, in modules, students can click through by hitting previous and next. So then students might move on something to read. And again, you wouldn't have to put in a read, a watch. You would just put in what it was that you wanted your students to do, but it might be a read it, it might be a watch it, it might be discuss it, holding a discussion board, however you want your students to engage in the content. Then students come to the demonstrating of understanding. Now comes that answer to the question about how do I give them choice without messing up my Speedgrader, right? So what we see teachers do a lot is they put out 4 different assignments. Maybe with this one, you can record a video of your demonstrating of understanding. This one, you can write a post. This one, you can record a song, whatever it might be. Maybe you gave them 4 different options for showing their understanding. Now, that might mess up your Speedgrader because if you give the student, okay, you pick one option to show your understanding and maybe they choose the video, it looks in the Speedgrader as if they haven't completed those 3 other assignments. Now, what you can do with this is instead of making 4 different assignments, you can just make one assignment and list the different options for submission. So you might say option A, like I said before, create a video. Option B, talk in the discussion board. Option C, write an essay from the perspective of one of the characters, whatever it might be. You can put all of your options in the same assignment. So students might be submitting something different for this assignment. However, they're all submitting to the actual same assignment. So from the student view, they could attach, again, whatever it was they wanted to use to show their understanding. A video, a link to a website, text, a Google Doc, whatever it might be. They're submitting one of their options. However, it's all going to the same assignment in Speedgrader. All right. So hopping back to the modules, again, this is just one way you might set up your modules for a playlist. And this is a very much self-paced and go through each thing. But just to show you another example, this is one teacher made for a history class. It says Unit 4 playlist, and rather than have them go through each step, they had them say, okay, complete 25 points worth of activities and the reflection. So you can see the teacher gave points for each assignment and then has a reflection at the bottom. Now, again, this brings me up to the point of the Speedgrader. Possibly this teacher is not concerned about the Speedgrader or has another way around using the Speedgrader for this assignment. But if I was a student and I completed these 2 assignments for my 25 points, it would reflect in the gradebook that I had not completed these 3. So again, you can play around the weighting of the assignments, mark it as excused for each student, and just might take you a bit longer to even it out in the Speedgrader. But this is, again, just another way to organize your playlist within a module. Any questions about playlists and modules as of now? And while you're looking at those questions, Amy, if you would like to view this course that we've been demoing, you can click this link here on this slide just to view the course. If you like a lot of the features of the course and you would like to import it into your own, you can go ahead to the Commons, which is a shared space for courses, and import the course into your own. And lastly, if you would like this module template, this one here, and you want to model it in your own course, you can import it into your own course by clicking here.
I think one thing I want to go over in the chat is talking about the use of different platforms. When you're designing your playlist, because you are offering student choice and not making every assignment mandatory, you have to think about what option would work best for you. So maybe it works best for you to do the modules and then see, okay, that this week they created the 3 out of 5. So those other 2 assignments, I'm going to excuse them from. If that doesn't work for you and you want to do it the way where students are uploading their 3 assignments, if you did an external tool such as a Flipgrid or a Write Reader or a different third-party tool, the students would then need to create the website URLs and upload those to you. Or when appropriate, they could take screenshots if it was just evidence of text. So really you have to figure out which one of these options works best for you. There's really no right or wrong answer. It's just how do you want to have your system for collection with your students?
And to add on to what Amy was saying, this is what it would look like on your end. If I made an assignment and I told them, okay, you can record a video or you can type up an entry, an essay to show your understanding, I would just have to make sure to go down here to submission type and make sure that I accept all of those. So maybe it's a URL to a video that I made, or it's a text entry. Again, I'm giving them that choice and I'm allowing them to pick how they want to respond. So they're not limited just to one way here. I'm making sure they can turn it in through multiple modes.
Mm-hmm. And you can share things that you create within Canvas with other teachers.
So I can go to modules. I can share this to Commons and someone can upload it, which I did, which is that link there, and you can upload it. However, with certain things like assignments, I can share them directly with other teachers. So if I click on this reading playlist assignment here, and let's say with my team this week, I said that I was going to, I think I can't share that one because it's submitted already. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Let's say as my team has said, I'm going to make the reading playlist for everyone this week. I'm going to send it to you. I can send it directly to a teacher. So I can start typing in Amy's name and send that to her. Now, if I'm a co-teacher in another course, so maybe my teammate has made me a teacher in her course, I don't even have to send it to that teacher for her to put it in her course. I can directly copy it to another course that I have. So if you teach multiple courses and you want to use the same assignment in multiple courses, I can copy that to another course and put it right in there.
There's some questions in the chat regarding Benchmark and ThinkCentral. With Benchmark, it is in the process of being added as an integration feature within assignments. It's just not quite ready yet. There's still some kind of back-end work that Benchmark is working on. With regards to ThinkCentral assignments, there is not yet an integration feature. So that is something right now that I know we're continuing to work on with ThinkCentral, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, so a workaround for that now, again, it doesn't have that LTI feature. They don't talk or play so nice with each other just yet. We are working on it, like Amy said. However, workaround is to link them, right? So they can click right to ThinkCentral, or you can show them in the beginning. You can click My Plan to go right to ThinkCentral. And ThinkCentral is pretty intuitive for students in that their assignment would show up. So you can say, go to ThinkCentral and complete exit ticket for A24, and that would show up and the names would match in ThinkCentral. And you can still write in your Speedgrader the name of that assignment and then just compare the submission and the work and the grades on ThinkCentral with the Speedgrader. So again, that's a little bit more work on your end, but it can still make it accessible for students to be able to do assignments and other tools that aren't embedded or work nicely with Canvas.
Yes, and because Google does autosave, they can go back and forth when students, if you're using the Google LTI, if student is working on a doc and then leaves it and comes back to it, it will save their work. And I see questions again about iReady and Seesaw. We're in the same boat. Seesaw and Canvas do not play nicely yet together. I know both companies are working to try to come to some agreement on an integration, but right now you would just need to add the link for your students so they can click on it and it will take them right to Seesaw or right to iReady.
And you can see here, Benchmark is here. We are working on it. It's just, we haven't gotten there yet. So we got that first step in there. Benchmark is in there and we are working on integrating all of these tools. When we talk about the Speedgrader, that is here in grades. And there are a couple of views you can take with grades. You can view your grade book by individual view, learning mastery. There are different ways that you can arrange and look within your grade book. When we have the Speedgrader, it just means that if I had a list of students here, I could quickly just enter those grades rather than kind of an older look of viewing students. Of course, I don't have students in my class, so I can't exactly show you. Speedgrader is just a quick way to enter in all your grades. All right. Now that we've gone over these three options, I also just want to point out again that in our playlist in Canvas slide deck, This second to last slide, there are many tools and tutorials to how to do many of the things we talked about today, such as setting your home page, creating a new page, embedding Google tools, assigning with Google tools. All of these things, we have guides for them. So please feel free to click the guides on this page so that you can implement many of these features in your classroom. We have about 7 minutes left in today's webinar. So if you have any questions, we'll be here for about the next 7 minutes to answer any questions you might have. Thank you everyone again for coming to today's training, and we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing to prepare for this school year.